Welcome to Movies Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube. And in the last month, give or take, I have spent over $500,000 purchasing new cars for the channel, actually closer to $600,000, which is absolutely insane. In November and October, I sold $300,000 worth of cars, 23, and then I spend double that, basically, buying more hoopties. And honestly, I don't regret it, but I don't think I will ever be able to do that again and buy a whole slew of cars because the market has gone absolutely insane. It feels like I bought a lot of these cars just in time because the recent results, well, they speak for themselves. Let's get into it here. The recent Meekum Kissimmee auction just ended and the results were absolutely shocking on, well, normal supercars, like a 2008 Lamborghini Murcielago LP640 Coupe sold for $330,000. That's up maybe $150,000 from what it was, well, maybe a year ago. And even crazier, a 2009 Murcielago LP640 Roadster, $440,000. Now, my Roadster is not an LP, but still, I paid under $100,000 for it with a bad transmission, fixed it, assuming it'd be worth about $150,000, but now, what is it worth? But is this a fluke freak thing, this auction? Was there a bunch of drunk people in the room because they had some blue chip car selling there, like a record-setting Ferrari F40 and a McLaren Speedtail and a Pagani Huayra, and the rich guys were in the room just buying things because a normal Aventador Roadster sold for $440,000, which is the same as a Murcielago? That makes absolutely no sense. But even more crazy, a 2017 LP700 Roadster, not an SV, not an SVJ, sold for $737,000, which is absolutely nuts. You can buy an SV, SVJ for that easily. And then the belle of the ball is definitely a 2017 McLaren 570S, which sold for $440,000. That's about $200,000 over probably the most expensive one listed for sale. There's 100 of them that you can buy right now, but somebody probably got drunk and mistook that for a Speedtail or something. I don't know, because there was a 600 LT there that sold for $291,000. A 620R sold for $330,000. But then somebody paid $440,000 for the cheapest, most common McLaren that money can buy. Now, it's easy to blame the craze of these collector car auctions and, well, alcohol and the competitive nature of people when they get into a room for those crazy prices, but you're seeing some crazy stuff online as well. It seems like every time a Countach comes up for sale, it is a new record-setting price. We have Carrera GTs now tickling $2 million, which they were $800,000 cars not even 2 years ago. And then cars that I own, like a Mercedes SLS AMG, recently sold on Bring a Trailer for $260,000. It had 6,000 miles, but I paid like $110,000 for mine with 30,000 miles. It's the same year, same car. It makes no sense. A BMW Z8, a car that I bought for $150,000. The most expensive car I've ever bought individually with my own money. One just sold on Bring a Trailer with 15,000 miles on it for $250,000. And it all just started happening here in the new year because 6 months ago, SLSs were selling for $50 to $75 less than that. And same with the Z8s, they were selling for $50,000 less. So I have no idea what the heck's going on. And to be honest with you, it's taking all the fun out of this because now I have to look at these cars more as an investment and less something that I can have fun with, because the very, very rich people are getting very competitive buying these things as investments and just blowing up the market. There's a couple of cars that I've always wanted that I will probably never own, like a 2005, 2006 Ford GT. They were $200,000 cars, ones with high mileage just a few years ago. Now the bottom is $400,000, or now $500,000, almost one brought yesterday on Bring a Trailer. The Ferrari 550 is another example of a car that was $100,000 a few years ago for a decent example with some miles, 30, 40,000 miles. Now that's a $200,000 car, or $250,000 if it's an under 20,000 mile car. It's kind of depressing, honestly, for those of you that are finally getting a little bit of money and wanted to buy something to get into the hobby, and now it's getting more and more out of reach. As people that are way richer than me hoard cars, kind of like me, except they're not spending every dime they have on cars. They're just hoarding them because they think it's an investment. So I'm kind of happy that I spent the money on here in the last month, because it seems like things have gone absolutely nuts. So today I'm going to recap you on this wild shopping spree that I went on, including these two cars in front of you. Most importantly, we're going to focus on the 2021 GT500 and why I think it's a good idea for you to spend another $60,000 customizing this thing for multiple reasons. But before I go into how and why I spent $500,000 on cars in a little more than a month, I'd like to thank Fishing Clash for sponsoring today's video. Fishing Clash is a free-to-play mobile game on iOS and Android with a sport fishing themed game that offers thrilling gameplay either by yourself, casting lines, or some great PvP by going head-to-head with other fishermen through different tournaments every week. Or just like fishing in real life, you can get together with your friends and hang out. I'm in Kansas in the middle of winter right now, but let's go cast a line virtually on the beautiful Florida coast and see what I get. Fun fact, a drip rail in a 66 Mustang makes a great phone holder so I can film what's going on my phone here, but you can see I've caught several fish already, some pretty rare ones actually, a red lionfish. This is all Florida, ocean-based fish, but a few that I haven't found yet. Nassau grouper, that's a really cool fish. Also, I have some modifiers to my reels here. I'm gonna hit that one to speed up my reel time, and let's cast. And the nibbles come pretty quick here. I got a nibble, so let's strike. Then you have to have a little bit of finesse with the reel, otherwise you'll let the fish go. So come on, no, too much. Come on. This one's fighting. And what do we got? Ooh, we have a hogfish. To get started with Fishing Clash today, use my gift code FISHWITHTYLER to get a special reward, which is only available for new players. With my gift code, you'll get a 3-star rod to get more bonuses on your rod, the Florida Pro license to increase your speed, catch change, and get more points overall, 50 luck power-ups to get the fish you want, and 30 weight power-ups to help you catch bigger fish. All of this for a $20 value, so you want to redeem your gift code by following 3 simple steps after downloading Fishing Clash, link below. So this binge of mine got started by listing all of my cars for sale, but admittedly I didn't want to sell a lot of them. Some I put I don't want to sell prices on them, thinking that they were too high that anybody would bite, but I hadn't been following the market, and really the prices were kind of low. And one example was the Bentley Azure, which I had a lot of serious interest in, but then there was one very interested party, and that's the original owner of this car. Yeah, that guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme. His son actually caught wind of the video and told his dad, hey, look at this. This popped up, and apparently it's his favorite car that he's ever owned, and it saved his life 3 times, according to him. So I got contacted by his son, which led to a phone conversation with them, which had them wanting me to ship this car out to California to where they bought it from for an inspection so he could look at it, make sure he'd buy it back. And, well, I said he could buy it for the price that I quoted in the video, which was really quite generous. But the fact that I could actually meet him, hand over the keys, and hand back the car that he loved was just too great of a story and too great of an experience to pass up. Apparently he's a passionate car guy. He thought the newer Bentleys, which is what he had after this, were too much like Volkswagen, so this was the best one. But then when he went to the dealership or called whoever at the dealership to work on getting this done, they were some really good salesmen and sold him a brand new Bentley instead, so he passed on this. But then wanted to send me something, and apparently this picture, which is to Tyler, as you can see, signed by the man himself, the original owner of this car. He drove this car to the photo shoot where this picture was taken. Now, I bought this thing for only $25,000. He paid probably over $300,000 for it when it was new, and well, $50,000 would have been a great deal to him, but honestly, I didn't want to sell it, and when he passed on it, I was kind of relieved. As cool as it would have been to meet him, well, maybe someday I will, but I still have his car, and honestly, this car was supposed to get me through to the point where I could buy a Rolls-Royce Phantom drop head, which at the time they were $150,000 cars. You could find a sketchy one for around $120,000. Well, now add $100,000 to that price. That's what they're worth now. So I'm never, ever going to buy a Rolls-Royce Phantom drop head for that price. And I'll probably hang on to this Bentley long term. But after that sell-a-thon where I raised $300,000, I managed to spend, well, double what I sold. So how is that possible? Well, I got some loans, obviously, but it's also because of you watching these videos, and it seems totally crazy, the fact that you all watch these videos in December, sponsors, Google, the ads that play when you watch, because the ad rates for the holidays are just so crazy. And I am a pretty big YouTube channel, but you gotta imagine there's much, much bigger YouTube channels than me, and think of all the money they're making. I just spend it all on cars. I started with this, a 1966 Shelby GT500 Hertz edition, which was modified into a Group B race car, but it was actually a race car back in the day after it started life as a Hertz Rent Racer. I haven't done a thing to this since I bought it. We plan to make it a little more civilized and livable so I can actually drive it on the street, but still have it Group B legal so I can start tracking it. But it's January, it's the middle of the winter, I can't track it right now. I want to get some windows for it and some things to drive it on the road, but there's no hurry. There's plenty of other cars that I bought up at the Car Wizards that are a bigger priority, like the Superbird, which you saw in the last video, still has its overheating issues. Not sure what it's going to take to solve that. And the Ferrari 355, that was $60,000. Actually, it was originally quoted $55,000 for it because the market was accelerating so crazy. He asked for another $5,000, and well, I kind of took it. But it needed an engine out belt service, and that's why I got it for so cheap, because there's not even nice ones for sale anymore for under $100,000. So that's the world we live in. I still got a great deal. In addition, there was the Audi R8, which is once again another car that's going way, way up. That one was $40,000, so it showed up not running. Fingers crossed on that, running soon. Bought that for my wife for Christmas. And then there was some good cheaper cars that I bought. The BMW M5, the 2000 in beautiful blue, along with the million-mile Cummins, which is actually up the Wizards right now because of a transmission leak that was a very easy fix. We're going to drive that 2 million miles. We also had the 1974 Gulf Orange Carrera for $50,000 that's going to get renovated at Leonard's. I got a great deal on that because it doesn't have the original motor. It has a 930 turbo motor in it, which is quite valuable, but since it's quite a project that I've been after for years, I was able to get that for a decent price, along with his Aston Martin DB9, which I actually sold. So I've already sold one of those cars that I spent on this $580,000 binge, and I sold it because I bought this. A 2021 Shelby GT500 on a whim, dual clutch transmission, 760 horsepower, and I've already put 900 miles on it. I took it on a trip to a Freddy's Frozen Custard store opening in Russellville, Arkansas. Actually hauled some product in it because it was a crazy opening, supply chain issues, had to go to other stores, and got it to that break-in number, nearly 1,000 miles to where I can go track it. And dealers are charging 10, 20, 30 over MSRP for these. I got this one for MSRP, and it wasn't because I was special or anything. A friend of mine actually set this up and then bailed on it, so I just took the ball and ran. So MSRP for a new GT500, and honestly, I don't think there's a better car that money could buy right now. I know it's a Mustang, but it looks exotic, especially in this grabber yellow, 760 horsepower, dual clutch, a really fun, comfortable cruiser, but a potent track weapon, and the dual clutch is just unbelievable. It's crazy how far it's come, say, from the SLS, which felt pretty fast, unless your name's Tavarish and car trek and finding something to complain about, but in comparison, this is just on a whole another level of performance. But there are a few things that I don't like about this Mustang, and there's one thing that I could do to fix it. But it's another $60,000 proposition that I'm seriously considering. But before we get into the things I don't like with this Mustang and go for a drive and talk about what I want to do, let's go outside because there's a few other sale cars that, well, one deal fell through, so you may want to buy it, and one I'm still waiting on. The title is still in progress on the Mercedes Maybach, but it is sold. I appreciate the buyer for patiently waiting with his deposit, but it's still sitting outside, safe and sound, a little dirty, but your chance to get a very, very cheap Maybach is coming soon. And next to it is the WS6 Trans Am from Car Trek. This thing has 500 horsepower under the hood, a fully built LS engine, a 6-speed manual, a little over 100,000 miles. You know, a nice driver, a really nice car, T-tops, a hog-nosed WS6 Trans Am, and I had it listed for $10,000. Somebody left a deposit very early on and then had to back out. It looks very dirty right now, but it's actually a really nice, presentable driver that, well, I don't think I'm going to keep. Honestly, I see myself fixing the little things that it needs and then parking it. The current needs are a catch can for the crankcase vapors, the blow-by, if you will. When this thing decelerates, it smokes out the back. If you put an oil catch can, that would solve that problem. It could also use a tune because it doesn't want to idle with the air conditioning on or very well cold, but when it's warmed up and the air conditioning's not on, it drives. It's crazy. So it just needs a tune. Also, the exhaust is rubbing sometimes on the differential if you hit things the right way. It's an intermittent noise that pops up sometimes. Pretty easy fix there with a muffler shop. So $10,000, which is what I paid for it. You get an ex-Car Trek car with probably over $10,000 under the hood and a very desirable future classic that, once again, I'm probably underpricing. I haven't researched the prices on these at all. But let's get back inside to the Here's my Wagoneer I just had. One just sold at Meekum for $130,000. Absolutely nuts. But what I went about is my van, my 2016 conversion van, there's a, holy crap. This thing only has 50,000 miles on it. Well, there's something that's broke that I just discovered, but let's get back to the GT500. So the first thing I don't like about the GT500, which is a kind of goofy one, is the fuel range. I knew buying it was going to have terrible fuel economy, but I didn't think about how it has the same fuel tank as a V6 Mustang, and so the range is like 200 miles going down the highway, or a little bit better. So I was stopping a lot for gas on my road trip. But I mean, that's the downfall of having a car that's this powerful and needs a lot of fuel to go down the road. So what did I expect? Not a big deal. One thing I don't like about this Mustang platform in general is the size. This thing is just absolutely enormous. And when you see the 66 Mustang next to it, and its original size, the 2021 looks comically big in comparison, but then it doesn't have that big of a feeling inside, especially in the back seat. In the back seat of the 66 Mustang, which this one doesn't exist, you have quite a bit of room. Maybe not as much headroom, but it seemed like there was more room back there than this thing, which I have the seats folded down right now. Not a lot of trunk space either. So it's huge, but they don't make a very good use of the space. Now the styling overall I love, but one thing I don't like is the wheels. The wheels just, you know, they don't do it for me. I don't like black wheels that much in the first place, but the only upgrade is carbon fiber ones that are, you know, $10,000 and several thousand each to replace if you break them, which is just absolutely crazy. So I stuck with these wheels. I also think they could have made this a little bit crazier looking. Honestly, it's very cool. It does look very different from a GT350 or a normal Mustang, but it doesn't look that wild in comparison to other cars. The other thing, and it's just kind of for bragging rights, is the speed governed top speed. I'll probably never take this thing up to its top speed of 180 miles an hour, which is electronically limited, but that is lower than a Hellcat or a ZL1, which can go over 200 miles an hour. I'm sure this thing's capable of it, but Ford for some reason decided to put a governor on it. That's a silly thing, I know, but there is one thing where this thing is, well, technically slower than the others, and it's kind of for a dumb reason. Let's go for a ride. Oh, they did a great job with the new car smell on this one. And the startup noise, the whole treatment of the gauges is so cool. Ford infotainment come a long way. It's actually very nice now, but the only gripe here is this knob, which is, well, kind of dainty and looks cheap. It is cheap because it's out of every other Ford that they have right now. Wish they did something different for a top tier GT500, but small quibble. Let's get out and talk about the big issue with this car. All right, we're gonna pull out onto the road now. I am going to lightly touch the throttle. Here's half pull, and it broke loose. I can never use this car's full potential of acceleration on launch, or really until halfway through second gear. This thing is struggling for traction because, well, mostly because of the tires they put on it, but also because this is a big, heavy car and it's only rear-wheel drive, the platform. You're just reaching the limit of what you could do with a rear-wheel drive car, back wheels. Now, the Hellcat can do this way better. Part of it is the tires. Also, I think they're much more focused on quarter-mile time, so they've engineered it a little better. But they could put some better tires on these things, and it could really hook up, and I think could get under that 3 seconds. Right now it's at like 3.1 seconds to 60 in these things. See, it just wants to go sideways and kill people, especially if you turn the traction control off, which I would never, ever, ever do in this car. So a lot of these issues can be solved. And the way you solve them is to send them to Las Vegas. Shelby American out of Las Vegas is doing the GT500 KR. Shelby American out of Las Vegas is doing the GT500 KR, where you buy an existing GT500 like me and send it off to be king of the roaded, which for $55,000 it gets you a lot. They're doing 60 cars per year, 2020, 2021, and 2022, 60 cars, and you can pay $55,000. And they will add a whole bunch of horsepower with a Whipple supercharger. They're saying 900 plus, probably closer to 1,000. They're gonna put a really cool looking hood on it that makes it look more aggressive. Different wheels that look really, really nice that aren't carbon fiber. Probably better tires if I asked for them, and a lot of other little bits to make these things even better. But it is $55,000, which is, well, I mean, the car was $80,000, so you're nearly doubling your investment into the car to do something that's just totally crazy. Almost 1,000 horsepower in this car would just be completely stupid. But here's the big reason, and it goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning of this video, and the investment potential of me doing that, being one of only 60 2021s to be super snaked, is hard to ignore. And now I'm looking at it as a collector car investor and not a car guy and a hobbyist, and I'm thinking that way, which is not what I set out to do on this channel. But let me know in the comment section what you think. Should I super snake this Mustang? And also, well, traction, traction, traction. Finally it hooks up. Also, don't forget Fishing Clash, link in the description below. Download the game and go fishing. Thank you so much for watching. This car needs traction.